Okay, so in case you don't know who I am, I'm Ben English. Okay, I've been an English teacher for over 8 years. I've trained many students preparing themselves for both of these exams, the TOEFL and the IELTS exams. These are international exams, famous exams, the most common exams, and yeah, I have a lot of experience with it. I have my own preference. I'm not going to tell you which one I prefer now, but yeah, these are like the goals of English. If you can do this, if you this is like the end game. This is like the last goal. If you want to prove yourself as an English speaker, prove yourself with some credentials, some certificates, then these are the two exams that you should be thinking about taking. They're the most famous, well-known exams. So what do they mean? So what does the acronym actually mean for IELTS? IELTS means International English Language Testing System, and the TOEFL means Test of English as a Foreign Language. So you've got TOEFL and IELTS. Again, it's not TEFL, TEFL, that's for Teaching English as a Foreign Language. This is a test of English as a foreign language. So this is an English test. It's not a certificate to train you to become an English teacher. So what is the TOEFL? The TOEFL is owned by the ETS, which is Educational Testing Systems, which was founded in the USA, United States of America, in 1947. If you want, the link is www.ets.org/about. So you can find out more about them. But yeah, it was. I was reading about it. It was a group of three different group of organisations that they came together in order to create these testing systems. They say about themselves that they are the world's premier, as in like high class, top quality English language test for university study, work, and immigration. So IELTS. The IELTS is owned by Cambridge. It's not Cambridge University. It's Cambridge Assessment and British Council. Yeah, so IELTS is one of the pioneers of the 4 skills English language testing over 25 years ago. So it's quite old, obviously 25 years ago. That gives it certainly, I think it was one of the first exams, especially with this idea of teaching communication skills. So the reading, writing, listening, and speaking. So combining those skills into true communication is what you need. English contains different skills within it. Yeah, and they call themselves the world's proven English language test. So IELTS is accepted by over 3,400 institutions in the USA and can be taken at over 1,600 locations worldwide. So this is an important fact. Something I want to kind of bring up was that IELTS is kind of more British, and based on the history, Cambridge is a university in England, and the British Council is an organisation that aims to promote cultural relationships. That's what they do. So obviously English is part of that. So IELTS is kind of like British, and TOEFL is kind of American. But first off, like why take an international exam anyway? So obviously the first reason would be work, because high paid jobs require highly skilled staff. So if you have an important job which requires you to work internationally with many people, or engineers or professionals who are not from the same country as you are, you might be using English as a communication tool. Now, the best paid jobs are usually international, important jobs which require a lot of communication. So if you need it, you might need it for work. Your job might require you, let's say, to have a certain level of English in order to be accepted. Same thing for study. 9 out of 10 of the top 10 universities are all English speaking. So they're in the USA or in the UK. That's based on topuniversities.com from 2020. So English is, the best universities are English-speaking universities. So if you want to go to a top university, obviously their lectures and the classes and the books and everything's going to be in English. So you're going to need to prove yourself as a good English communicator in order to study at one of these universities. And also, obviously, for immigration, if you would like to live in another country, in the USA, New Zealand, Australia, Canada, in order to integrate, so that's, you know, come together with the community that's already there, you will need language skills. So you will need English. So in order for them to accept you as a resident, they're going to be very insistent that you do speak the language, because that's how we can create an inclusive and understanding society, is if we have good communication skills. So this is about credibility. I mean, you can probably speak English, that's fine, but for these processes, for proving to a university or a corporation or to a government that you can speak good English, you're going to need to take accredited an exam. You're going to need to prove to them from someone that they trust, and IELTS and TOEFL are trusted. So let's look at the IELTS format. So we have the 4 skills. So we have reading, writing, speaking, and listening. Reading and writing have academic and general English versions. So the reading and writing, there are 2 IELTS exams. You have the academic one or the general English one. Let's say the academic one is if you were going to go to university, and the general English one were perhaps if you're going to get a job or if you're just going to immigrate. You don't need to have more academic terminology and text. So they've actually divided it into general English and academic. You can do it on the paper or computer, no problem, in either format. And they use a band score, so it's 0 to 9. 0 means you didn't even try the exam, you couldn't do anything. 9 means you're an expert speaker, pretty much where I imagine I am as a native speaker. So most universities require about 4.5 and above, 4.5 and above, and this is also tied to the CEFR. So that's the Common European Framework for Languages, which is a standard, and we'll look at that a little bit later. Also, as we are in 2020, and if you didn't realise, we have COVID-19. So some obviously exam centres have been closed, and it's become difficult to actually do paper exams. So they have a kind of an alternative, which I'm not sure if it's not as valid as the authentic one, but if you're in desperate times and you need it now, there is an alternative which you can check out here, which is called the IELTSindicator.com. So that's just for this year. I don't know if they'll continue that next year, but obviously I think these exams will eventually go into more and more online formats. So it is the future. It is certainly the future, which is great because sometimes there isn't a test centre near you, so to travel is an extra expense, which we don't really want, do we? It's already quite. Format is pretty much the same thing as well. They base it on the 4 skills, no? But they use a point score system rather than a band of 0 to like 9. So they use 0 to 120. Each skill, the reading, the writing, speaking, and listening, is divided into 30 points. What I just want to mention here is that this is not an exam where you have a pass. It's not where you're like, oh, I've passed the exam, I'm cool, I'm done. No, this is these both TOEFL and IELTS are exams of your level of English. So they're a multi-leveled exam. So you could be great, or you could be average, or you could be a very basic speaker. It will test for every level. Again, it's on online and paper, and they also do have a COVID-19 at-home test as well. So if you're desperate for that exam, there are alternatives. Just go to the ETS website, ets.org, and you don't need to type that one. There's a link. It's pretty obvious, I think, on the main page. Okay. So let's just compare the IELTS and TOEFL scores. What I mentioned earlier was the CEFR, which is a framework. It's a kind of a reference for levels. So C2 is expert, advanced, and A1 is basic, beginner. Okay, so they do it in A1, A2, B1, B2, C1, C2, 6 levels. So the IELTS, you can kind of say, okay, the IELTS, if you want to have a C2, which is absolutely expert level, even I don't think most English people would struggle, because it's not easy, an exam anyway. There are external influences when you take an exam. Some people just aren't great at taking exams, but even native speakers would some would struggle to get to here, which is quite amazing. Most native speakers, I think, at least are here, I would hope. But again, it depends on the country and the level of education. So IELTS is like 9.0 to 8.0. That's in TOEFL, that's like 120, 110. C1 is 7.5 or 7.0, or it's 109 to 94. B2, 6.5 to 6, 93 to 60. B1, 5.5 to 4, or 59 to 32. If it's less than 3.5 or 32, you're basically a beginner speaker or a beginner communicator. Now, like I said, in universities require about a 4.5 at least, or 5, even 5.5. So you really got to get to this kind of pre-intermediate level. Let's just call these ones names. Now, this is beginner, like you've just started. This is kind of now elementary, so you have like the basics and you're getting a bit more confident with it. The B1 is now that you're basically able to communicate about yourself and about your life, things that are kind of relevant to you in your about your family and where you live and everything about you. When you get to B2, well, now you should be able to talk about things that are not so locally but globally, so things that are a bit more out there, topics on the environment, topics on politics, economics, about life in general. That's when you're going to get to about B2 and the C1 level. So call it a pre-intermediate and a high intermediate, and this is quite expansive. The intermediate level is there's a lot going on there. Intermediate level is there's a wide range of levels within intermediate, pre-intermediate, intermediate, and high intermediate. Yeah, and then you've got advanced, and then finally proficient. So, like I said, most universities, I think, are going to be looking for at least a B2. It depends, and depends on your job, right? Let's say, for example, if you wanted to go and do some housekeeping in Colorado or something like that during the ski season, then if you're just housekeeping, making beds, well, you might just need an AT. You don't really need a very high level of English. Let's say, though, however, you're managing the hotel now, well, you're certainly going to need a B2 level in order to deal with complaints and deal with your customers and sell and stuff like that. If you're going to be a lawyer in the USA defending the hotel, well, you're going to need a C2 level of English. So it depends on what kind of job that you're after. Will obviously depend on the kind of skill, the English skill you need. Okay, so they've got their own ways of doing things. So first off, IELTS structure, listening. So the listening is 4 listenings. It's 30 minutes and it's 40 questions. It goes from easy to difficult, so we start with simple social conversations and it moves on to academic interaction. So you can imagine just, hey, how are you doing? Are you enjoying a cup of tea? Yeah, it's nice. What are you doing today? That kind of thing. That's a simple social conversation. The academic interaction would be like, have you considered the plausible reason for this pandemic? So you're gonna, which is good anyway. Like they do it in this order because it's going to build you up a little bit, right? You don't want to go from difficult to easy. You want to go from easy to difficult. So they consider that. Accents. You're going to have all the accents. You're going to have the UK accent, the United Kingdom, New Zealand, USA, Australia, and Canada. So they are including all the different accents within English. And the question types are things like multiple choice questions, matching. So this goes with this one, multiple choices A, B, C, D. You might be labeling like a map or a diagram. You might be completing like gap fills, or you might be answering in short answers. So that's the listening. 4 listenings, 40 questions for IELTS. For the TOEFL, it's a little bit different. It's a little bit different, okay? I mean, it could be 3 to 4 lectures, which are about 3 to 5 minutes long, with 6 questions per lecture, or it could be 2 to 3 conversations with 2 speakers, each with 3 minutes long, with 5 questions per conversation. and with all the accents as well. They do mention that they also use the different accents. Now, the question aims, I guess, I start to get a bit more confused here. This is one of the reasons why I prefer the IELTS. I think it's clearer. Even just looking at that, we go back for listening, 30 minutes, 40 questions, simple social conversations, academic interactions, multiple choice, matching, labelling, completion. I mean, that to me is more simple than the terminology, than the TOEFL terminology, which is, first you have to understand the gist. So that means kind of the idea, like the general idea. Then you have to like find the details. Then you have to find out the function of like why or for what reason is this speaker using this language? What's their attitude? So are they being happy or sad about it? What's the organization of their ideas? Is this one more important than that one? Connecting content as well. So how does this relate to this? And in inference, so I think that's the right pronunciation. Inference. But that is like guessing, basically, like taking it and taking an idea and taking a bit of this and a bit of that and kind of assuming or guessing or inferring like the answer. So to me the structure is not as clear with TOEFL. They don't have as much information on the website as the IELTS. I mean, they have these little videos and you can watch them, but we'll see about the rest. IELTS structure for the reading, well, the reading have 3 passages, which are in total is 60 minutes and it's 40 questions again. So that's quite consistent from the last one. 40 questions as well with the listening. These are long texts, so I think they're about 900 words or something like that. I read, taken from books, journals, magazines, and newspapers. So they are authentic questions. Authentic texts. Now, the different types that you've got is multiple choice again, the matching, the labeling, the completion again, the short answers, all very simple, like understandable. But you also will add to the reading with like heading matching. So, for example, like what's the title of this article, which heading should go where, and also there's questions about the writer's opinion. And yeah, I mean that sounds real clear to me. If you go to TOEFL, then we're going to have 3 or 4 reading passages, each approximately 700 words long, with 10 questions per passage, and it's between 54 and 72 minutes, so it does vary, I think, depending on how long the word is. Question types, again, this is it. This is where, to me, it becomes a little bit. Reading factual information, okay, so when did they say, this particular event happened? Inference and rhetorical, again, so like guessing or the kind of trying to figure out the meaning based on what's being said, like what does this mean, what does this infer? Reading vocabulary, like can you find similar vocabulary, the words like synonyms? Sentence simplification, so again what is this idea of matching, like finding a sentence within the passage which looks similar to there. So another one, that's matching, inserting text, which is logical, and prose summary, so just as it says, a summary. So again, to me, the TOEFL just comes across as a little bit more complicated in their own way of explaining their own test. They come across as a little bit more jargonistic, if that's even a word, I don't know. But the idea of jargon is they don't try and make it easy to understand. As a teacher, it's like, what do they mean by that? Even I have to kind of understand their way of thinking. Whereas I find that the IELTS is a lot more like natural, a lot more it just makes more sense to me. It seems clearer and concise. And yeah, well, let's have a look. 2 writing tasks. So the writing, first task is describing visual information. So I like this one. I think this is really fun. It's like a graph or a table, there's a chart or a diagram, and you have to write 150 words literally describing what's happening in that diagram or graph. Fantastic tool to, great, that's describing something, writing about it, awesome. Task 2 is a point of view, argument, or problems. So you're going to have to write a little essay of 250 words about your point of view, perhaps an argument, an A or a B, or perhaps a problem, cause and effect. So you've got 20 minutes for the first task and 40 minutes for the second task. Let's compare this now to the IELTS, so the TOEFL structure, which is you've got 2 writing tasks, 50 minutes in total. The first one is integrated. Okay, so you read a passage and listen to a lecture, and then you answer questions based on both. So in the TOEFL, you're being asked to actually use, in the TOEFL writing, you're being asked to use your other skills as well. You need to have good listening and you need to have good reading skills, because otherwise your writing won't be very good. And the second task is the independent one, which is write an essay based on a personal experience or opinion in response to a writing topic. So they'll give you a topic and then you have to kind of write an essay based on it. So personally, I prefer the IELTS one, right? Like you're just describing visual information. I think that's pretty easy, and you're not being asked to listen again. I mean, I don't understand why the TOEFL is, I mean, I do, but I don't. They're trying to blend the skills, but this is teaching writing. We want to know what's your writing skill, not your listening and your reading. So why are they integrating it? Because they say that's like real life. Well, yeah, but an exam isn't exactly like real life, is it? We don't really communicate using exams. So I am definitely for, again, in this case, I prefer the IELTS. I think it's a lot simpler, a lot less confusing. You're not being asked to read, you're not being asked to listen in order to make a question. Okay, speaking. So IELTS, 3 speaking tasks, and it lasts about 11 to 14 minutes. The first task is about yourself, which is great. Yeah, that's what you should be able to do, is talk about familiar topics. Where I'm from, where do you live, where I work, what my family, those kind of things about yourself. Makes sense, right? Going from easy. Then the second task is they're going to give you a cue card. So they're going to give you a piece of like information, and it's going to give you some information, and they want you to talk about it. It could be anything. So in this kind of case, they're looking at your presentation skills, from what I think. If you look at the third task is interaction. So the examiner will ask more questions about the second topic. That's the same topic. They will ask questions about that task. So you're going from giving the presentation to questions and answers. And I think as well that's quite relevant. That's like real life. When I'm a teacher, for example, now I'm doing a presentation, and at the end of the presentation I would expect to have some questions and answers. So and the first task is talking about myself, so that should be quite easy, and that should make me feel quite comfortable in the exam. It's not like the exam is trying to trick you or make you think or trying to trip you up. The TOEFL structure is a little bit different. You have 4 speaking tasks, 45 to 60 seconds to respond, 17 minutes total. So this is my problem with the TOEFL, right? Why do I have only 45 to 60 seconds to respond? That to me is not very natural, and that is to me is not very, there's a lot of pressure to speak within 45 to 60 seconds on one task. And what I don't like is like there's a lot more questions within the speaking, so you're having to you're having to think a lot more. You're given 15 seconds to think, and then you have 45 seconds to respond. Trust me, I can't even speak for 60 seconds. I speak too much. So at least with the speaking task, with the IELTS, you're given about 3 minutes here, 2 to 3 minutes, you're giving another 2 to 3 minutes, and then you're giving another 5 minutes sort of thing, or a little bit more. So I feel like that's more natural, more like normal, than being, right, 45 seconds, respond, right, next question, 45 seconds, respond, but now next question, 45 seconds, respond, next question. That to me is not really a nice way to take an exam. Very pressure, a lot of pressure, time pressure. Time pressure is tough. That's going to stress you out. The more stressed you are, then the brain kind of recedes into its oldest brain, which is more emotional and not logical. So it stops you from actually speaking. I mean, I struggled with my university French exam. I mean, I speak French, my mother's French, but the pressure that was on me to perform in that moment, yeah, I didn't do very well. Even though I know I can speak French. Yeah, it's a struggle. These exams are not nice. Some of them can be nice. So anyway, 2 to 4 integrated. Yeah. So again, this is the whole thing about the TOEFL. The TOEFL now wants it's the speaking section, but we're going to do some listening and we're going to do some reading. So it's trying to combine all the skills again when I think it should just be doing speaking. What I like about the IELTS is that you have the examiner and you are having a conversation. So it's like it's back and forth, question and answer. Whereas the IELTS, it's question answer, but not with the examiner. It's kind of more. It feels like separated, like independent. It doesn't feel connected. So I don't know how meaningful it is. IELTS, in terms of their grading, I like again what they do with the IELTS is that they provide you this kind of framework. And they tell you what they're looking for. They don't go into it so much or not so concisely with the TOEFL. But let's look at speaking. So what are they looking for? The 4 things in speaking. Fluency and coherence. So are you flowing? Are you having a lot of pauses? Are you going or talking about random things? Like, are you bringing about a sense of a real conversation? Lexical resource, so that means like your word bank. Like, are you repeating? Oh yeah, everything's beautiful and everything's beautiful and everything's beautiful and everything's beautiful. It's like, you only know the word beautiful. We'll try and learn some more words, right? Grammatical range and accuracy. So yeah, so grammar is important. Sorry, Callie Anders, but yeah, you do need grammar rules and you should know when you should be using them. So yeah. If you don't know your grammar rules and when to use it, you should definitely take my 21-day English grammar challenge, because it's going to clear everything up for you and it's going to give you the right kind of range and accuracy that you need to be successful in this exam. And pronunciation, okay, how intelligible are you? Can I hear you? Can I understand you? And again, I'm also I'm releasing a new course on Friday on English pronunciation. So I'm making these courses to help you guys ultimately achieve this goal of getting an international certificate, an international exam. And the writing is similar, sort of, but this is about the task achievement or response. So, like, did you answer the question or not at the end of the day? Was there a conclusion to it? Did we get to a solution from the problem? How well was that done? Same thing with coherence and cohesion. So does it make sense, and is it kind of flowing together like the ideas? Again, lexical resource and grammatical range and accuracy are important. TOEFL grading is like 0 to 5, and they have their own rubric for each one. I mean, again, it's a bit more complex and a little bit less simplified. You can just go to their website and they have the rubrics. But yeah, it's a lot of information. They do their own way of doing things. So a certificate of validity, so this is important, is like, how long do these certificates last? Well, both the IELTS and the TOEFL have a 2-year validity period. So if I take the exam in 2020, it's going to be valid from 2020 to 2021 and 2022, and that's it. Why? Because there is a phenomenon of second language loss or attrition. So that means you lose the language, basically, unfortunately. C'est comme en français, if I don't practice it, I forget some words. I do forget words. So how do I recover from that? Well, I usually do a lot of listening. Listening is great because then you start hearing the language and the flow and the melody, and you start to hear new words, or you get reminded of words and the functions. So, but in terms of these certifications, you really need to take it when you need to take it, because it's not going to last you forever. Because yeah, you can lose languages. You can't lose it if you don't practice. It's like a muscle. Price. Well, the TOEFL is so each exam center is different. They do charge their own prices. This is what I found online, that the TOEFL is between $180 to $300, and the IELTS is around $225. So they're about the same price basically. It will depend on your other costs, I suppose, like travel costs and where is there a test centre? Can you say that? Where is there a test centre? For example, we don't have an IELTS test centre in Cusco in Peru, so somebody would have to, factor in a hotel, flights, transport, food, and everything else in order to take the test in Lima, in the capital city. So here are a few of my do's and don'ts. Okay, some of my tips. So do find out first which exam is better suited to you. Okay, the IELTS or the TOEFL. Do your due diligence, which means that you do your research. Ask your university, ask your work which one that they want. Okay, that's due diligence, because you don't want to prepare for the IELTS and then your university says, oh no, we don't accept IELTS, we only accept TOEFL. So please make sure you know which one you're doing. Do continue to study English separately, yeah? Just because you're studying the exam doesn't mean you should be improving your English anyway. Better English will improve your score. So take it at the same time, like before the month's coming up, take an English course, do some reading some books, watch movies, make sure you are practicing your English before the exam, not just focusing on the exam practice, but your actual English skills. That's going to help a lot. The better your English, the more relaxed you will be, the more you'll understand, the more confident you will be. Do make a study plan. So figure out start from the goal and work backwards. So okay, I want to go to university in September 2021. Okay, great. So I need to take the TOEFL or the IELTS maybe 2 months before. Okay, cool. All right, now I need for 6 months I need to make sure I have a plan. A strategy in order to figure out, just to plan it so it all coincides. Again, there's no point training and preparing for something now if you're going to do it next year. Like, at the end of the day, why train for a marathon if 2 years before the actual marathon? Like, you're going to train more and more and more, bit by bit as the marathon date comes. So you need to know your date and make a little plan to go backwards from that. That's going to help you a lot. Very much so. That's how I think that I see most people fail, is that they don't have a plan for success. And finally, my don't is don't worry or stress. Like I mentioned earlier, worry and stress don't really help for communication skills. So, and you can take the exams as many times as you want, and every time you take it, you'll understand the format of the exam, and you should do that. That's another do, really, is take test practice. You don't need to study for it, just take the exam and see if you which one, take both of them basically. Take the IELTS and take the TOEFL. There's lots available online, you can just search it up and take them both. Go, okay, I prefer that one, I prefer that one. That's going to help you as well. And the fact that you've done it now will help you as well when you actually take the real exam, right? The practice is going to help. Okay, guys, so a little review, guys. IELTS versus TOEFL. They are both very credible exams. They're both going to help you with your success, your professional, your personal success. They do have different formats and a unique style and structure. Personally, I'm going to say my opinion. I think the IELTS trumps the TOEFL exam. From my experience, the TOEFL is not very user-friendly. I'm sure they can work on that, but from my experience, the IELTS is more user-friendly. So, as in, it just doesn't feel so much like a test, whereas the TOEFL really feels like a test to me. It feels like a driving theory exam test, whereas the IELTS feels like a real university exam. So I definitely vote. I vote for IELTS. It's not because I'm British and I prefer the British way of doing things. I just think it's more realistic. It's like a real exam that you'll take at university, whereas the TOEFL one, I have never seen that format in a university. So that's my vote of confidence for the IELTS. And yeah, that I think either one of these is your ultimate English goal. This is your end path. This is your reaching nirvana or enlightenment in terms of your English language skills. If you can do this and you can pass this exam and prove your credibility, you'll be sorted. You'll be like, hey, I can speak English. Check this out. I've got this. Yeah, and that's going to give you lots of opportunities in the future.